What's going on, everybody? And thanks for tuning back in to another episode of Florida Prison Talk. For this one right here, I've read this book. This is my third time reading this book. My memory is messed up. I don't know why. I had to read this. This is my third time reading this book. It's called Corruption Officer. Some of you might have read this already. It's by a guy named Gary Heyward. He was a corrections officer at Rikers Island when everything was going down. Any questions you had about Rikers Island, all the stuff you hear about these guys that used to jail and bid at Rikers Island, it all comes into fruition at this time. You know, you're seeing it from a crooked guard's point of view. He was bringing in drugs. It's called corruption officer. He was bringing in drugs to the different gangs. He was damn near the head of the gangs. He was putting hits on other inmates that was making the house hot. He was selling coke. He was bringing in tobacco. He was selling some of the female guards to inmates. They was having sex in the cells and everything. He was having sex with the other guards inside of the bubbles. Like, it was crazy, man. This book speaks deeply about Rikers Island and all the stuff that was going on. You guys need to read this book. No, I haven't talked to Gary Heyward. This is not a promotion video. I'm not getting paid for this. That's a good book. I love reading prison books, and I'm going to talk about that book a little bit, man. Gary Heyward, he's from Brooklyn, I think. Bedford-Stuyvesant, if I'm not mistaken. He went to the Marine Corps, got out the Marine Corps, and he decided to be a corrections officer. They sent him to Rikers Island. He said when he got there, it was something like he has never seen before in his life. He said it was really crazy. You know, a lot of the things he talk about is a lot of the guards, these guards was beating the shit out of inmates. He was. They had these gloves there that some of the guards had with metal plates inside of them. And the guards would literally come to the inmate's cell and beat them up. I did a video one day and I say, what was in the water at Rikers Island? And after reading this book for the third time, the guards had a lot to do with a lot of the stuff that was going on in Rikers Island. These guards was not living right. The guy, Gary Heyward, they would use him to go, if they had inmates that was unruly that they couldn't handle, they would use him to go and beat up the inmates. And they would give him mostly body shots with the gloves with the metal plates in them. This book is crazy, man. So on top of him being part of the enforcing team, he was bringing drugs in for a dude named Flacco. Flacco ended up telling on him. He was bringing drugs in for Flacco. Flacco had his little gang of people. I think Flacco was in a Spanish gang. And he was supplying Flacco with the drugs. Flacco was supplying him with the drugs. First they started off with tobacco. And then the people inside the house around the area started selling coke, and the money was getting short. He's like, why is my money getting short? He said, I meant to tell you, man, cocaine is the new thing now. So then Gary Heyward, who was the corruption officer, he started bringing in cocaine. And he was making a lot of money. Child support was already getting him, so this was a whole nother source of income for him. He was making a lot of money. And if somebody came in that house and they was making the house hot, like being all, like he said a lot of dudes would come in there just off the gate. Yeah, I'm here now. What's up? Who got the phones? I want the phones. I'm stabbing COs in the neck. He said dudes will really come in like that. I'm like, wow. Like trying to make their name. And he said that when dudes come in like that, he'll make sure Flacco and his gang will handle him. That way they don't make the house hot. You get what I'm saying? It got so real, man. He was dealing drugs to this guy, Flacco, and it got so real to the point where Flacco, the corruption officer was doing his rounds down the cell house, and he seen Flacco on his knees in the dude's butt, and playing in the dude's butt, and he's like, what the hell going on in there? What is going on in there? And he came back, he said, hey, everybody out. He scared him, like, oh, snap, what happened? They was all startled. They ran out, and he went to talk to Flacco. He said, you my man, man. I know you from the streets. I know, you know what I'm saying? And you came in here, you my man, you know, I'm bringing you stuff. I didn't know you was like that, man. You get down like that. So Flacco burst out laughing. He thought that was the funniest thing in the world because he wasn't engaging in no homosexual activities. He was actually robbing the guy, and he had to get the stuff out of the guy's behind to rob him for it. It was wrapped in cellophane or whatever. So in order to get it out, he had to pull it out of the man's butt, man. And that's what he was doing, and he got it. He got it out. He found out, somehow I forgot what the book said, they seen him on the visiting floor swallowing stuff. When they was on the visit, like, oh snap, this dude got stuff coming in. So once they seen him on the visiting floor swallowing stuff, that's when they realized he had stuff coming in. And that's when the gang, they had him in the cell. There was like 3 gang members in the cell, and they made him, they took out his butt and everything, and they sent him on his way. I guess they said it was not enough for everybody to eat. We need all of this money. But all the stories, man, are crazy, man. The stuff the inmates were doing to each other, that's detailed in there. The stabbings that was happening, man. One of the guys made the block hot, so the corruption officer put a hit on him, and the dude Flacco he basically rocked the dude to sleep. He's like, yo, calm down, man, calm down, everything good, man. Here's a porno magazine for you, man. Here you go, here's a porno magazine, relax, man. And he gave the guy the porno magazine, put his hands on the guy's shoulder like everything was cool, just chill, man. Everything good, man. And then he spit the razor out his mouth and just one motion, spit, and slashed the guy up so much that the guy started holding his cheek, kept trying to hold it and stuff, and it was falling apart. That in the book he said you could see his gums and his teeth. But the thing about this guy, when they took him to the medical or whatever, the guy never told. He just said, when I see him, I'm gonna kill him. You know, so I guess the guy was a street dude, he didn't tell her nothing like that, but the corruption officer, he set that hit up. And he was setting other hits up along the jail that was making his thing hot, you know? It's crazy though, because when it was all said and done, the person he ended up getting caught by, the person that ended up telling on him was Flacco. Flacco had an attempted murder charge. See, the whole time Flacco was in Rikers Island. So he got an attempted murder charge and he had to go upstate. He got sentenced to 10 to 20 years. So they transferred Flacco to C-74 before he went up north. I guess Flacco thought about the time he had, and he told on the corruption officer, Gary Heyward, and that's how he ended up getting set up. Gary Heyward, the corruption officer, he ended up doing 2 years in the upstate New York prison. But let me back it up a little bit to what they was talking about, the stuff that happens at Rikers Island with the different gangs and stuff. He was speaking about the Bloods, because he was in there basically at the infancy of all of that stuff, man. And he was saying how off the books everything went. Like nothing was standardized. They had to make up their own rules. Just to survive in Rikers Island, you had to make your own rules up. Like guards was getting stabbed up, inmates was dying. Listen to this story. There was this inmate named Jay Murder. Jay Murder came on the block, tough, rough and tough. Yeah, yes, whatever. He's cursing out a CO. He's inviting the CO to his Frank stand or whatever. He's going off on the CO, and I guess they said the CO wasn't that pretty. She was kind of ugly, and he was making fun of the way the CO looked and everything, like degrading her and everything, getting on her. And the Gary Heyward said he came to help her, and she said, I got this, I fight my own battles. He was trying to help her, and the CO, he was going in on the CO. And Gary Heyward said you could see the tears coming from the CO's eyes or whatever. This was so ironic. He said Jay Murder was talking a lot of stuff like, yo, F y'all, man, I don't care about none of y'all. Forget all of that stuff, man. It's lit. I don't care. And he's laughing at the girl. He's like, I see the tears coming out your eyes. He's still inviting her to the Frank stand. You just mad because I don't like you. He said, I'm in jail and I still don't want you. I wouldn't want you if I was free, and I don't want you while I'm in jail. You ugly. He's saying all of this stuff. Next thing you know, they found Jay Murder under the bed, wrapped up like a mummy. He was wrapped up like a mummy. The only thing that was open was the mouth hole and his behind hole. I'm trying to watch my words because a lot of my videos do not get monetized because of the words, and I realize that, man. A lot of them, almost every one I do gets the yellow $ thing instead of the regular one, the green one. Anyway, so Jay Murder, his only part was he's wrapped up like a mummy with his mouth thing right there and his behind open, the hole open for that. They wrapped him up. He was like wrapped up real tight. They had to unwrap, and they put him under the bed. So Gary Heyward was nervous because he's supposed to make his rounds like, once an hour or something like that. So his job could have been on the line. You get what I'm saying? And they unwrapped him, and the guy didn't tell him nothing like that. They moved him to a different house. I guess back then at Rikers Island, they had the homosexual house in there. They had an actual housing, they said in the book, for homosexual. And this guy's not lying. He was a CO in all of these houses. And they said they moved Jay Murder to that block. And Gary Heyward said he walked past the block one day, and Jay Murder was getting, I guess it was 11 dudes in the shower Well, how do they say it? 11 dudes in the shower waiting to J Mills. They said he went past the cell and he was getting done in. I'm like, that's so weird. You come in all rough and tough. Then the next day you wrapped up like a mummy. And then you in a homosexual house and all this stuff is going down. He was speaking about a lot of that stuff. Like back then, he said, as a guard, he said he's seen a lot of inmates get their stuff taken away from them, like get gang raped, man. That was like, it was just crazy hearing that, because you hear about that in movies and you hear the older guys speak about that when they was locked up back in the 70s and 80s and stuff. But when you start hearing how it was then, man, like that's like really crazy, man. And he was talking about the shanks and stuff they was getting in, how they was boofing stuff. The measures these guys was going to make sure they had weapons on them was crazy. The measures they was taking were crazy. Almost a lot of the COs was selling their body for money. A lot of them, because people was in Rikers Island, they said these people in there was getting money. They had money in it. They were supporting their families from Rikers Island. And like I said, a lot of the COs would be in the utility closet. They'd be in the cells. He was bringing the drugs in through his up under his vest. He said he would come to work suited up every day because he know they're not gonna have him take all his stuff off. If he's coming in there with nothing on and they do a search. So he would come in there every day, and one day he said that they tried to be slick. They had a dog there, but the dog was under the table, but you couldn't see the dog. You only seen the person that was handling the dog. So all you think is just the CO there, but it's the dog under the table. And he said he got looking at it, he seen the dog, and after he seen the dog, he put his stuff in some random locker, and when the dog left, he went back out there and got it. But he had a lot of close calls, man. One time they had he had just gave Flacco the coke and stuff. And they had people from another jail doing a search. He said they would have guys from other jails do searches. And he's like, oh man, I just gave Flacco the drugs. If they do a search, they gonna know the drugs came from me. So he said he's seen that they going down the cell house and they searching everybody and everything. And he said he had to think real quick. So he said he ran in front of Flacco and said, don't worry about him. I got this loud mouth. He like to talk a lot of mess. We're gonna see if he talk that mess now. I'm gonna search him personally. And he was the one that searched Flacco, and that's how he got away with that. He acted like he was searching him. He said he tore his cell up, playing it off and everything. And they never searched Flacco under the impression that he was already searched. But it's a lot of stuff going on, man. They said that these COs will have get-togethers at special bars these COs hung out at. They would be inside the cafeteria talking about the stuff they did to the inmates, like how they beat them up. They were stomping these inmates' heads out. And a lot of these inmates was trained to say, I slipped and fell in the shower. Let me tell you another story. The correction officer, Gary Hayward, the corruption officer, one day he had seen his homeboy called him and say, man, this guy raped my daughter. Raped my daughter and killed her or something like that. I know raped her for sure. I'm not sure if he killed her. This guy raped my daughter, man, and he's coming your way. Basically saying that he's coming to Rikers Island. You a CO that he's coming your way. Gary Hayward got wind of what cell house the guy was in. He put on them doggone gloves with the metal plates in them. And he found the guy and he beat the hell out of him. And he told the guy to tell him you slipped and fell in the shower. And that's what he told the guy to say. And the guy, when the IG came, the guy was trying to say the CO did it. But what they would do was they would cover their nameplates back then with tape. So after they get beat up, the person won't be able to identify him. You got to remember from what the book is saying and what the people say, Rikers Island had a bunch of different buildings. It was really big. Like, so you don't even see everybody. Like, you a CO, you might not ever see another CO the whole time you was working there. You know what I mean, though, generally speaking. He said it was different, man, back then, man. But he said the worst thing an inmate can do is get loud with a female CO. He said when it came to the female COs, he said the inmates, the male COs did not play about that. They did not play about their female COs. They would stand in the paint for them, man. That book was very, very interesting, man. Let me tell you another story. See, it keeps coming to me. This is how interesting this book was. He had a guy named Biz that was from the same projects as him. They grew up together. Biz was in the jail. Biz was the first person he started bringing cigarettes in for. Because at first he was trying to be a straight CO, but he said the temptation was so crazy. And his excuse was, I don't know if it was an excuse or the truth, after child support took most of his money, got a $39 check. He said, man, I need some more money. And that's when he started doing that. And his homeboy Biz was there, and he was bringing in stuff for Biz. But this is the moral of the story. This is with Biz. What happened was, Biz had got beat up by the COs. The COs called Gary in to help him. But Gary said Biz was like in a fetal position, and he didn't really know. He didn't know who it was there. He just went in and helped them, and he started beating them up, stomping them, punching them, doing all kind of stuff. He had no idea that that was Biz. And when Biz finally stuck his head out, he seen it was Gary. He was like, "Oh, it's him, my best friend I grew up with, his mother and my mother friends." And Gary said once he seen Biz, he realized it was Biz. He was like, "Oh man, I messed up." So to break this story down a little bit, they from the same project. So Gary said he seen Biz mother, a few days after that. And then he said he seen Biz. Biz came home. They was in the elevator together, and Biz lifted his shirt up to show his, I guess he had a 38 snub or something. And Gary Hayward was a correction officer in New York. Correction officers are allowed to have guns in New York. It's really hard to get a gun license in New York, but if you're a correction officer or probation or parole officer, you can have a gun license. And he said he showed Biz his, because Gary Hayward, by the way the book seemed, he still seemed like he was a hood dude. He showed his, but they didn't do nothing in the elevator. And one day Gary Hayward said some months or weeks later, whatever, or days later, out of nowhere, gunshots started sparking out. He said he know for a fact it was Biz shooting at him. Biz was trying to kill him. And long story short, he bumped into Biz. Now he's on point. Now he said he's paranoid. He can't even focus on nothing. Every time he look around, he don't know what Biz is. Imagine having beef with somebody that you was cool with that stay in the same projects as you. Imagine going through that kind of beef, you know what I'm saying, with people in the same projects as you, and it's unavoidable. You know your time is coming or their time is coming. That's crazy, man. I wouldn't want to live in a life like that, for real, man. Y'all hit that like and subscribe button. So he's worrying about, he was getting off at different floors and stuff. When the elevator doors was opening, he was hesitating to get out. He'll wait till the door's about to close, and then he'll pop out. You know what I'm saying? He learned that from a gambling spot or whatever. And finally, he said he heard Biz singing a song called "Am I My Brother's Keeper?" He said he heard him on like 2 floors ahead, like, oh, snap. It was almost like Biz set him up. He's like, oh, so I hear him. So he said he goes up the stairwell. He goes up real slow. And Biz had his head down. He had a cardboard rolling some weed on there. And he said he walks up to Biz with a gun, and Biz never looked up. He sprinkled some crack on there and everything. He was rolling up the weed and everything with the cardboard. And he said he had a gun. He said, "What's up, Biz?" Biz like, "What's up, man?" He looking down still. "I seen you, man. I seen you the other night come out the gambling spot. Woody whoop. I seen you come out of 151st store the other day. Woody whoop. I seen you coming from this the other day. I could have been did you in, man. I see you all the time. You just don't see me." Long story short, Biz still had his head down. He look up, the gun is there. He not even worried about the gun. He said, "You ain't never been no killer, G." That's what he called him, G, for Gary. He said, "You ain't never been no killer, G." And Gary said, he asked him, "What does a killer look like?" He said, "You ain't no killer." And he kept rolling his weed, sprinkling the crack on it. And he took the board off, and he had a doggone sawed-off shotgun. He's like, "What's up?" Out of nowhere, Biz came out with a sawed-off shotgun. He said, "I'm really hurt by what you did, man. You hurt me, man. You beat me up. You my homeboy. You my man. You just like them people, man. I ain't tripping, bro. I wasn't gonna snitch on them. I jail. This is what I do. I bid. I'm a jailer. I'm always jailing, so that wasn't nothing new to me. But when I seen you doing it, that hurt my heart, man. It hurt me really bad." And Gary was like, "Dang, man." He said, "I didn't even know it was you until it was too late, man." He said, "It don't matter, man. You joining them, man. That's not right." He said, "I didn't know it was you." So then Biz hit him with a real question. He said, "Well, what if you would have known it was me? What have you have done?" And Gary really couldn't say nothing. What would you have done? Because the way the correction officer work, it's like that blue line. Like it's like almost like as a correction officer at Rikers Island back then, it seems like you almost had to beat up an inmate for the other guards to trust you. Like if you was going in that square, you wasn't hitting inmates, none of that stuff, it's like they wouldn't do nothing around you. In order for them people, the other guards, to trust you, it seemed like you almost had to commit an act of violence, or you had to commit something that was against the rules for them to want to even be around you. So who knows what would he have done if he knew that was Biz? He can't be like, "Oh, I know this guy." But he said guys kept coming in that he knew. That was a big problem for him. Every time he knew, people kept coming in. But let me tell you this, though, before I close this video. How he ended up getting caught was, not only Flacco was telling on him, he had people in the bullpens on the way to court, coming from court, talking about him. "Oh, so-and-so, Officer Hayward, Correction Officer Hayward, he the man, man. He bringing this stuff." And inmates talk. He bringing this stuff in, and they speaking in front of COs and stuff. They speaking, and so he got inmates coming to him every day. "Yo, what's up? I need this. I need you to get out of here." He said he had to watch the way he talked to him because he was on edge. And he said the other guards was calling him inmate lover. He said the guards told him you can't trust these guys. They'll turn on you in a minute, and that's what ended up happening. But the crazy part is that it was a bunch of other different people in the Rikers Island that was doing the same thing, bringing stuff in. It was so much crookedness going on in Rikers Island at the time, man. The guards had their own gang. They was their own gang. You guys seen the interview I did with Officer Santiago? If you haven't, go back and check the interview out. The guards had their own gang. They had the same thing, don't tell. The incident reports, they was forging the hell out of those incident reports. It's in the book. Inmate deaths and stuff happened, they'll run away so they don't got to be in the incident report. Inmates was dying at Rikers Island. It's in the book. They was dying there. It's real. Inmates was getting done up at Rikers Island during the 90s. It was crazy at Rikers Island during the 1990s. Yes, it was. I mean, any doubts you guys had, any of the stories, the Killer Kev, all of them stories, you're going to see it in this book, man. You're going to see it in this book. He speaks on the about the Jamaicans. He speaks on the Bloods. He speaks on the Spanish gangs. He speaks on all, it like give you the truth, like, oh, this was so-and-so was talking about. This was so-and-so was talking about. C-76, C-74, OBCC. All of the different buildings that people were talking about is the buildings he talks about, man. The way the housing units are set up. He talks about the people running the house. The COs preferred to have an inmate running the house because they could sit in the bubble all day and sleep. These COs was getting sexual favors done on the job while in the bubble watching the inmates. They basically used to assign people to run this house. That made their jobs easier. It made their jobs way easier when they had somebody else running the house. These inmates, listen, you gotta remember this. A lot of these guards in Rikers Island was already from the hood. A lot of them was from the projects. A lot of them were like reformed gangsters. They wasn't green by a long shot. You get what I'm saying? They not coming in there with degrees and stuff. Now they say you had a lot of guards that was like that also. But the majority of the guards was with the shit. They was hood, they was from the hood. They were from Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, Queens, you know what I'm saying? The projects. He was from the projects. He speaks about inmates that came in there. I was from Fort Greene projects. He speaks about the 40 projects. He speaks about everything, man. Y'all make sure y'all go get that book, man, Corruption Officer. And I'm gonna start doing videos on prison book reviews. So we're gonna always stick to the prison genre with this channel. I'm gonna do the prison book reviews about all the prison books I read. I read so many I can't even keep up. But just for starters, Corruption Officer, Chad Marks, Blood on the Razor Wire, The Hot House. The Hot House speaks about USP Leavenworth and Tom Silverstein and the Aryan Brotherhood in the federal prison system. Because you know the Aryan Brotherhood started in the California prison system in the States. And a lot of those guys started catching Fed charges, and that's how it got over to the Feds. But the Hot House speaks about Leavenworth. It openly speaks about homosexual activities was so regular back then. We got another book called Lorton Legends by Ione, E-Y-E-O-N-E, or something like that. He's with the DC Blacks. He speaks about the prison in Lorton, Virginia. That was the prison they sent all people from DC to. All the people from DC used to go to Lorton prison. I remember when I was stationed in Quantico, Virginia, I would always see the sign for Lorton, Virginia. You know what I'm saying? So I was always interested in that even then. But he speaks about Lorton. Lorton was really bad. He speaks about DC. Listen, the Lorton prison was so bad that I'm gonna say that for another video. But The Hot House, Chad Marks, Blood on the Razor Wire, Corruption Officer by Gary Heyward. I read the other book by a bunch of the books by Simon. I think his name's Simon Wood. He has a channel, a YouTube channel. I forgot the name of it. Also, it's another channel by a guy. He talks about the California state prison system. He has a bunch of different book titles. It's like a series of them. I mean, my Amazon Kindle just full of a bunch of prison books I read, man. I read the book The Wild Bunch. That's Little Donnie. That's not about prison. That's about him coming up in Brownsville, being a millionaire. So many different books, man. But like I said, for this video right here, I was speaking on the Corruption Officer with Gary Heyward. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate all the subscribers. Y'all make sure y'all go check out that book. I feel like I haven't even covered everything in the book. Like, so much more stuff that I want to speak about. And if I feel like I missed some stuff, I'm going to do another video on it. Love, I appreciate y'all.